Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Sanctuary's Coffee and Conversation Show. My name is Myrna Haskell. I'm executive editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online magazine for women that empowers and inspires with a focus on the arts, humanitarian pursuits, health and wellness, inspirational travel, career, culture, and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. This morning, my guest is Marika Blossfeldt. She is the author of the award-winning Cooking with Marika, Clean Cuisine from an Estonian Farm, and she is also a certified holistic health coach. Good morning, Marika. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Good morning.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about something that's close to your heart, but I wanted to alert readers that your book, Cooking with Marika, is excerpted in Sanctuary Magazine. We did this earlier this year, so if you'd like to take a peek, you can find this under blank canvas in our book excerpts section. So please check that out. But today our topic is diet and the immune system. And so, Marika, I wanted to start out by talking about how important it is those dietary choices that we make for strengthening the immune system.
Yes, dietary choices are extremely important for all bodily systems. And many people think of food as this thing that gives us energy, but food gives us so much more. Yes. Food provides us with all the building blocks we need to regenerate our cells, our organs, our entire body. Our organs then do all the amazing things and work to keep everything running smoothly, from pumping blood, digesting our food, separating nourishment from waste, cleansing the body, keeping pathogens in check, allowing us to breathe, and the list goes on and on.
Yes.
So when it comes to food and our immune system, more than ever before, it is important to eat clean. And by that I mean eat foods that are as close to Mother Nature as possible.
Okay.
Foods that grow in the garden, in the fields, in the forests, in the waters of our planet Earth. And we also want to eat foods that have not been stripped of nutrients in industrial processing, as is the case with white sugar and white flour. So you want to prefer foods that do not need an ingredient list. And those foods are all the vegetables, fruits, berries, lettuces, leafy greens, intact whole grains, legumes, and animal foods such as free-range eggs and poultry, grass-fed meat, and wild-caught fish and seafood. Getting back to white sugar, it has an especially detrimental effect on our immune system.
Okay.
Because sugar triggers the excretion of B vitamins and most minerals. Eating sugar, therefore, can lead to a depletion of the body and thus set the stage for all kinds of illnesses. It is said that for up to 5 hours after eating sugar, it destroys the germ-killing ability of our white blood cells.
Oh my God.
And reduces the production of antibodies. So it literally paralyzes our immune system.
And this is foods that have white sugar as opposed to, say, eating berries or an apple or something like that.
Exactly.
You're talking about white sugar?
Yes.
And that's usually added sugars as well, because I think I heard you say, Marika, a list of ingredients. I think that was so important. I haven't heard somebody say it that way before. But if you're eating something that doesn't have a list of other ingredients, you're eating the pure food, right?
Exactly. You eat the one thing, which, you know, is a natural thing, and it has loads of vitamins and, you know, fiber and all the good stuff.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So, antibodies then are proteins that get secreted into the blood or lymph stream to fight any harmful bacteria, viruses, or parasites. Sugar also interferes with the transportation of vitamin C, an important antioxidant and protector of our cells. And sugar causes our cell walls to become porous, and thus unwelcome microorganisms can invade our cells more easily. Also, I would say please stay away from foods containing preservatives. Avoid preservatives such as sodium benzoate, sodium nitrite, sodium sulfide, sulfur dioxide, you know, the like. I mean, these are words that we don't even know what it means, right? And certainly
Yeah.
it's not food.
Right. It's things that they want to keep the foods from,
From
decaying.
spoiling.
So they're
Yes,
adding chemicals.
exactly. These are really chemicals. Now, the function of these chemicals and preservatives is to kill bacteria. So what sounds like a good idea at first really isn't. And the reason is that these chemicals do not differentiate between harmful and friendly gut bacteria. They kill all bacteria
Mm-hmm.
and therefore compromise our good bacteria in the gut, which make up 70 to 80% of our immune system.
Wow.
So that is really important to understand.
And that is really that, I think what we've been all hearing more recently is that gut health is so important to overall health, to everything. What happens in
Yes,
our gut, right?
yes,
I
exactly.
wanted to, if you can, also segue a little bit into inflammation, because I have, for instance, a gluten intolerance. And I know
Mm-hmm.
we've been hearing about, celiac disease, gluten intolerance, IBS, these different, digestive diseases. And so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of wanted to segue a little bit into inflammation and how that affects a healthy immune system.
Yes, and you know, if I have a few more things to say to
Oh,
this first
absolutely.
topic, would that be
Absolutely. Go
okay?
ahead.
And then we move into the inflammation part,
Sure.
because it sort of builds all on each other. You know, I
Okay.
kind of thought this through.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay, go ahead. We were on the sugars and the
Yes,
additives and the
yes.
preservatives.
Um, so it's really important that we eat clean food.
Hmm.
And among these clean foods, I would emphasize to eat lacto-fermented vegetables. So lacto-fermented vegetables, they are truly superfoods. And when it comes to strengthening our good bacteria, they are an excellent choice. I would suggest to eat at least 2 tablespoons of lacto-fermented vegetables daily. So you see, it is not a huge amount and easily doable. You can have it as an appetizer or a snack in between meals. You can also buy lacto-fermented vegetables in the store, but you can also make your own. If you decide to buy them, make sure that the ingredient list is only the main vegetable. So
Okay.
for example, with sauerkraut, that's cabbage. And there should be some salt and water on the ingredient list. Some fermented products will also include some spices and seeds, and that would be fine too. But it should not contain vinegar, because vinegar is a different kind of preservation. So no vinegar is needed in the lacto-fermentation process. The
Is
sour
vinegar in
taste,
general not good? Because I'm
no,
hearing
it's,
vinegar in so many foods are, contain that. So I just,
yeah, no, it's fine, but
just
vinegar
in
just
this
doesn't,
case, specific case. Okay.
yeah, vinegar just doesn't do anything
Okay.
positive, for the lacto-fermented vegetables.
Okay.
And the sour taste of the lacto-fermented vegetables comes from lactic acid. And that gets produced naturally when friendly bacteria start to break down carbohydrates in the vegetables. And while sauerkraut is maybe the most well-known lacto-fermented vegetable, you can lacto-ferment really any vegetable. And most cultures around the world have their own specific lacto-fermented food. You might have had miso soup in a Japanese restaurant that's lacto-fermented,
I
or
didn't know
Korean
that.
kimchi, made from a kind of cabbage-like vegetable. Then we have Polish pickles made from small cucumbers. Soy sauce as well is lacto-fermented. So maybe later we'll have time to talk about, you know, how to actually make lacto-fermented vegetables. Yeah, so maybe let's go back a little bit and define what inflammation means. To inflame means to set alight, to ignite. So inflammation in our body is a way for the body to rid itself from pathogens, damaged cells, or irritants by setting them on fire. It is a healthy expression of our immune system. When we experience acute inflammation, our body is drawing attention to a problem and signaling that it has mobilized the healing process. While acute inflammation may be painful and incapacitating, it is a vital part of healing and should not last very long. However, chronic inflammation is a very different situation.
Okay.
Chronic inflammation is continuous and is for the most part silent. It can last for weeks, months, even years. It can develop from an acute inflammation when the body has not been able to eliminate the cause of the underlying irritation. It can result from low-density chronic irritants, such as environmental toxins. And there is a strong link between a diet high in processed carbohydrates and sugars and chronic inflammation. When there is too much sugar in the blood for our cells to take up, the excess sugar molecules attach themselves to protein molecules in the bloodstream. And the result is a large molecule that can injure our delicate arterial blood vessel walls, causing irritation and inflammation. And that is actually the main cause of heart disease. So chronic inflammation is also caused by a diet that is high in acid-forming foods. And these are, for example, sugars, grain products, and proteins. Too much stress and physical overexertion will also make the blood more acid. Chronic inflammation can cause the immune system to attack our own body's healthy cells and tissues. And this is called an autoimmune response and is common to all autoimmune diseases, including Addison disease, celiac disease, Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, inflammatory bowel disease, lupus, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, and type 1 diabetes. In addition, chronic inflammation is linked to some conditions and illnesses that are not considered autoimmune diseases, such as asthma, Alzheimer's disease, anxiety, cancer, chronic fatigue, dementia, depression, eczema, gluten intolerance, heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. So the common denominator in most diseases linked to chronic inflammation is a leaky gut, a condition in which food particles that are not supposed to enter into the bloodstream are able to get there by passing through a compromised intestinal wall. And a compromised intestinal wall is one where there are not enough friendly bacteria standing guard. Okay. So the good bacteria are like soldiers protecting our intestinal wall, and they decide what can go through and what shouldn't go through into the bloodstream. So we really need an optimal number of these good bacteria, and they need to stand shoulder to shoulder so that nothing harmful can slip through.
Okay.
Eliminating allergy-triggering foods and healing the gut are therefore important first steps in reversing autoimmune diseases and preventing other devastating diseases linked to cases of chronic inflammation that are so rampant in today's world. So we are coming back again and again to those friendly, good bacteria, and they are so important.
and what we're doing when we're eating sugars and white flour and these types of things and processed foods, all of that, we're messing with the balance of those healthy bacteria. And they're
Exactly.
so important. Otherwise, you get this leaky gut. I think everybody can follow that.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about specific vitamins that really target immune health, and perhaps some foods that we can naturally get these vitamins?
So I'm not somebody for taking isolated vitamins. I really come from a kind of a more holistic approach, and I really believe that food is the best source of getting our vitamins. So if you don't mind, I would like to sort of turn this question around and tell you about my top 8 winter foods,
Okay.
which include vitamins and,
That's
of course,
perfect
other
because we're
healthful
getting into the
components.
holiday season and the winter, right?
Yes,
So this is perfect.
exactly. So according to traditional Chinese medicine, our kidneys and adrenals require special care during these colder months of the year. The kidneys are considered the home of our life force, and it is imperative to take good care of ourselves during the winter, to slow down, to rest more, and to look within to prepare and preserve life force. It is helpful to eat warming foods. Meats, especially lamb and pork, happen to be the most warming foods on the planet. Use them more generously in the winter. Enjoy cooked intact whole grains, as well as soups and stews with root vegetables and cabbages. And so, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my 8 wintry superfoods to you to keep you warm and healthy. Number 1 is buckwheat. It is a grain. It is also kind of a super grain. You know, we talk about quinoa being the super grain. And the reason because these two are super grains is that they have a very high percentage of protein.
Okay.
And
protein without the animal fat and red meat,
yes,
right? Which
exactly,
people are looking for.
Yes. So many grains, you know, the main ingredient are carbohydrates. But with buckwheat and quinoa, there is also protein.
Okay.
And buckwheat is also rich in flavonoids that protect against illness and boost the effectiveness of vitamin C in our body. Buckwheat is a great source of magnesium, which relaxes blood vessels, improves circulation, as well as the transport of nutrients into our cells, and it lowers blood pressure. Buckwheat is a potent, remedy against recurring colds and flus. So really, you know, if you haven't had buckwheat, check it out. It's easy to prepare, and I think it tastes also very, very good.
Okay.
Then cinnamon, a spice, has a warming effect and acts as an expectorant with colds, bronchitis, and flus. Cinnamon relaxes muscles, strengthens the heart, lessens digestive upset, and warms the kidneys. During the winter, it is recommended to eat otherwise cooling fruits such as apples, pears, and plums, baked in the oven and sprinkled with a little cinnamon.
Yeah.
And it's so delicious, right?
Yes.
The mixture of cinnamon and honey can soothe a sore throat and calm infections. Cinnamon is anti-inflammatory and fights flu virus on the onset, and even can prevent pneumonia. Wow. I'm going to have some water.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then another spice or vegetables, however you want to call it, is ginger. It really warms the body and strengthens our respiratory system. Ginger gives us energy, activates our metabolism, and stimulates our immune system in a good way. The essential oil that gives ginger its typical spicy taste is a relative of the ingredient found in aspirin, which thins the blood, and can prevent heart attacks. At the first sign of an oncoming cold, grate about half a thumb-sized piece of ginger into a cup, add the juice of half a lemon, and fill up with warm water. Add honey to taste, and drink to your health.
I love that. I'm going to write that one down. Thank you.
Yes, and it's delicious too, not just only good for you. Then we have the cranberry. It's very mineral rich, contains a good amount of vitamin C. It's anti-inflammatory and antibacterial and has an overall strengthening effect on the body. When you have a sore throat, crush a few tablespoons of cranberries, add about half the amount of honey to it, and take then a teaspoon of this mixture a couple times through the day. Cranberry juice, as all women know, is also an excellent remedy for bladder infections.
Yes.
Then we have sauerkraut, which is lacto-fermented cabbage. It's probiotic, meaning life-supporting. It supplies our intestines with friendly bacteria, and it fights, therefore, bad bacteria, microbes, and yeast. During the process of lactofermentation, friendly bacteria increase the vitamin content of cabbage tenfold. Now that's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I recommend eating sauerkraut raw for maximum effect, because when you cook it, you will also kill the bacteria.
And I think you said you only need about 2 tablespoons a day, right?
Yes, exactly. And so that's really not too much to ask, and it's delicious. You can also make a very simple salad using sauerkraut, where you combine sauerkraut and small cubes of cooked beets. Then you just add a little bit of lemon juice, and no, you don't need a lemon juice because you have the sauerkraut, but a little bit of olive oil and pepper. So this is a really lovely
I love
salad.
olive oil and I love pepper on my food. So that's another one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so you have a little sweetness from the beets, and a little tartness from the sauerkraut.
Okay.
Then the next superfood is hazelnuts. They are warming. They provide us with a concentrated amount of nutrients and energy. They contain vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, oils, protein, and fiber in abundance. Just one handful of hazelnuts provides us enough energy for an hour-long workout. They protect our kidneys and prevent the forming of kidney stones. Hazelnuts contain a lot of vitamin E, which helps to keep our cell walls strong and protects our skin from free radicals. Then, next superfood is butter, believe it or not.
Well, that's just fine with me.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything tastes better with butter, right?
Yes, it does.
So butter contains fat-soluble vitamins A, E, and K2 in abundance. And the short and medium-chain fatty acids found in butter give us a feeling of satiety and encourage body fat to be burned for energy. So that's very cool, right?
Okay, yeah.
Butyric acid, which is one of the fatty acids found in butter, is anti-inflammatory and protects the health of our digestive tract. And the relationship between omega-3 and omega-6 is balanced, so making butter a really healty fat.
So where should we cap off butter for the day, for instance, for those of us that can have butter on everything? How much per day? Now I'm understanding the health benefits, but we don't want to overdo it, right?
You don't want to overdo it, but have it with your bread or sandwich, have it with your vegetables. You can always just put a little butter on top of it when they're already cooked in whatever way you're cooking them. And for some reason, butter really makes everything taste much better too.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So yeah. I know many people think it's bad, it's fat, but it's not. So relax and enjoy. And I mean, see if you enjoy it. Of course, if you don't enjoy it, don't eat it.
No, I think we
But
have many happy people listening right now that are clapping. Yay!
And one last food item, and that is herring. It is one of the best food sources for vitamin D. You know, vitamin D is important for strong teeth and bones, and it also helps to prevent illnesses such as MS and diabetes. Now, in the winter, when there is not enough sunlight for us to produce our own vitamin D from the cholesterol in our skin, herring is really a great and welcome source of vitamin D. In addition, herring contains fatty acids that prevent heart problems, support our brain, and soothe inflammatory processes in the body. So those were my 8
Those are your 8.
superfoods
Thank
for the
you.
winter.
Okay, well, briefly, because we've had so much information here, it's almost like I have to have you on again. But I wanted to talk a little bit about just some general healthy eating habits. So I'll start with the one that says, don't eat one giant meal a day or 2 and then starve yourself the rest of the day. Try to eat smaller amounts, but throughout the day. I've heard that from numerous sources, but I'm wondering if you can talk about some other things that we should do just in terms of eating habits.
Yeah, so I was thinking one more eating habit, and then I have some other tips.
Okay.
For, you know, what we can do with food in this cold season. So I would suggest to have dinner on the early side.
Okay.
Let's say around 6 or 7 p.m. And the reason is that by eating early, our food will be almost digested by the time we go to bed, which will then allow us to sleep better and deeper and get more rest from our sleep. But the most important thing is that our liver, which is the organ that cleanses our body, goes into high gear at 11 p.m.
Oh.
Yes, that's very
I
interesting.
didn't know that.
And it is good that it would be good if we are already resting at that point, sleeping deeply, so that the liver can do her job, you know, more efficiently. What happens also around 11 p.m. because the liver kicks into gear is there's sort of a burst of energy. And actually that's why, you know, like nightclubs open at 11. They take advantage of that energy. Of course, you shouldn't that energy, you know, on partying and dancing.
Right. And then people are drinking alcohol, which has to be processed through the liver, right?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So not so good.
I needed to know this at like 18 and 20.
But that's a funny thing. But then I have a few more winter remedies.
Sure, would love to hear.
That you can make at home. I mean, in fact, many spices have properties that are really great and make them very useful in the fall-winter season. So cayenne pepper, for example, is detoxifying, anti-inflammatory, fights the flu and the common cold. Then regular pepper treats sinus and nasal congestion, acts as expectorant. Then turmeric is anti-inflammatory, is a strong antioxidant, and combined with black pepper, its bioavailability is greatly increased. Some sources say that it is 2,000% more effective if you have a little black pepper together with the turmeric.
Let's close by just giving you a moment to tell our listeners a little bit about your workshops and some of your services. Do you have something coming up for winter? We've been talking a lot about winter. And then
Yes.
I'll have your URL at the end as well so that folks can find more information about you.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a winter thing, but I'm not promising it yet. So okay. I'm going to talk about what I do for sure, which will be my spring cleanse.
Okay.
my Eat Clean Summer Challenge, and my Autumn Detox.
Yes. Okay.
And so these are programs, these are online guided programs where you can sign up. I will send you all the information needed, and then I create a Facebook group where we can all, meet, and you can, you can ask questions, and I will answer them. I would like to welcome everybody to sign up for my mailing list, and you can do that by going to my website, marikab.com. And as a welcome gift, you will receive a recipe, and that will be antibiotics in a jar.
Oh,
and
okay.
That is a very
That's
simple
wonderful.
recipe.
I love it. I love the idea of it. Antibiotics in a jar. That's great.
And it's again based on spices. You will also need some. I'm blanking out. Some ginger, some lemon juice, things like that, garlic.
Things that people usually have in the cupboard or the
That you would
refrigerator
have
anyway,
at home. And you make this concoction, and then you keep it in the refrigerator. And as take like 1 teaspoon every morning on an empty stomach. And when you already feel under the weather, take 3 tablespoons in between meals. And that is really helpful to boost your immunity and to get rid of any colds or flus.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Okay, well, I'd like to close, as I always do, by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us today.
What you need is a jar, like a glass jar or ceramic. I would say it should be at least a quart size. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to make tiny amounts of the lacto-fermented vegetables. And then you want to wash the jar with warm water and some soap and rinse it well. Then heat 1 quart of water to boiling. And then take it off the heat and let it sit at room temperature for about 10 minutes to cool down. Meanwhile, you take your vegetable. Let's say we're going to make fermented carrots.
Okay.
So you want to wash the carrots, and then you can cut them in smaller pieces, whatever shape you like. You might just cut them, crosswise into little rounds, or you can cut them into little sticks. And then place the cut vegetables into the jar. And if you like, you can also add some pieces of ginger or garlic. It's just for flavor. And you want to pack your jar, really nice and tightly. And then leave about 2 inches at the top free. And then take 1 tablespoon of salt and dissolve it in the warm water and stir it. Make sure it's nicely, evenly dissolved. And then check the water with your fingers. It should feel warm, but it should not sting you. Right. So if it stings you, then it needs to cool down a little more.
Okay.
Then you pour the salt water over the vegetables until they are fully submerged. And then you want to cover the vegetables with a little lid. What I do usually, I have already manufactured a little lid by taking some plastic lid. You take kind of the thing that's sticking up. You cut that off, and you end up with a round, flat disc.
Okay.
And then you put that into the jar. And it's actually good when the disc is a little wider even than the opening of the jar, because then you can sort of fit it in nicely, and it will keep the vegetables submerged in the brine. And then you want to cover the whole thing with like a towel and place the jar into maybe a plate. because sometimes what happens is that in the lacto-fermentation process, the liquid sort of bubbles over. So you want to have something underneath to catch it.
Okay.
And then you just let it sit there for 3 days in room temperature. And you will see little bubbles forming, and that is a good sign because that tells you that the fermentation has begun and is happening. Sometimes what happens is a little foam gathers on the top, and that you can just scoop off and discard. And after 3 days, you want to taste your carrots. And when you find that they taste nicely, sort of a little sour, but good, then they might be done already.
Okay.
If you feel they are not sour enough, you just let them sit there another day. You know, people have different preferences, more sour, less sour. And once you're happy with the sourness, you take out the plastic lid, and then you close your jar with the tight lid that fits that jar, and put the jar into the refrigerator. The reason you have to put it into the refrigerator is by putting it into the cold temperature, the fermentation process will stop. So it will remain at that level of fermentation, you know, for the rest of its life before it's all eaten up. If you were to have the jar sitting out at room temperature, it would explode eventually.
Oh, wow.
Because the fermentation will continue in the warmth. And at some point, it's so powerful, it's gonna break the glass. So you don't wanna have that happen. So put it in the refrigerator, and then you have it there, and every day just take your 2 tablespoons, and it's gonna change your life.